Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, August 17th. It is a beautifully sunny day and cool right now. Here in Mobile, we're still in that same weather pattern we've been locked into for the last few months of at least threatening rain every afternoon. But the good news is about the threatening of rain is it cools down. During the day, we're having heat advisories right now. It's getting over 100. So needless to say, if I work outside at all, I work outside early in the morning. And the rest of the day, I stay in air-conditioned comfort. So here we are in my front porch again. I've cleaned up a little bit of things since last week, but pretty much everything still looks the same. The leaf on my ZZ plant has come out, this one. A couple of weeks ago, it was nothing but a spike. The bromeliad that I had taken cuttings from is still back there in the corner. It's doing well. The one inside is doing far better than the one that I put outside. I had to move this. I think it's Japanese Aurelia. There's another word for it, or another name. But I had to move it around to the front because it started encroaching into my pothos. Of course, you can still see the orchid. A couple more blossoms have opened up. It's doing well there. It likes its life. And I switched my apicia around. I hacked it back about 3 weeks ago, and it is blooming again. I've been told that they are related to African violets, so they require kind of the same care, which is minimal for me. Of course, what is that called? That fern is doing really well. It likes its life. When I bought that staghorn, it was only about 4 inches tall. So it seems to like that. I used to have it for the longest, right here where that armillary sphere is. But when it got too top heavy for its pot, I went ahead and potted it up in a hanging pot and stuck it there. And it seems to like it there. I just put it there last year, but it is stretching for the sun. Many years ago, where this picture is, I had one hanging on a wall, and it drooped down probably about 4 feet. The problem with it was it just got so big that I didn't know what to do with it, so I wound up getting rid of it. I think I gave it away. I didn't realize that here in Mobile, in a zone 9A, they will actually do quite well outside. Of course, you do have to protect them from frosts. So had I known that, I could have, at that time, I had big oak trees in the backyard. I could have just hung it off of my oak tree. But I didn't know. So there you go. It's okay, you can always buy new. I am not averse to having plastic plants. This is plastic because inside here it is way too, I should say artificial. Oh, better yet, faux. It's a faux ivy. But real ivy isn't going to grow there. Spathiphyllum is still doing well, still blooming up a storm. I have to show you this orchid. This orchid too is in full bloom. Just about every bud has opened up. There's still one to go way back in there. And it looks like one flower fell off. Yeah, other than that, it's been a beautiful day. A beautiful week, I should say. See outside my windows. When I planned my garden, I planned for views outside of the windows. Here's where I sit. Oh, you can see a bird eating at the bird feeder. It's right next to the spot where I like to sit during the day. Back in here is pothos. It doesn't look like it sent out any new roots, but it's still there. And I should point out that my aspidistra is doing well inside. Last year I let it dry out too much and it got spider mites. This year I've sprayed it once for spider mites. So far so good. I am single-handedly trying to bring back the aspidistra as a houseplant. It still is in England. This is a pretty plant and it's not called the cast iron plant for nothing. It's very hard to kill and it likes dim light. Here's another thing I started this week. I was cleaning up in the front porch and cut a branch off of my pencil cactus because it had gotten a little too stretchy, and it was just a single branch. And I remembered on Gardener's World what they said to do was to make sure you know which way is up, because the roots only come from the bottom part of the stem. In other words, if it grows towards the sun, that has to be up. So in any event, I took that one branch and cut it into 3 pieces and stuck them all in that pot, and we'll see what happens. I have nothing to lose. Back deck looks good. Now we'll start going out this way. Go backwards today. I haven't put cushions out pretty much all summer because, not just because it's hot, but simply because it rains every afternoon. I had to move one of my Sarracenias, this little turquoise one, because the cats annoyingly started chewing on all of the new growth. There was a whole bunch of new growth there and they decided they wanted to eat it. And they haven't touched these other 2 so far. But it is what it is when you have cats. You can see I've got their bowls out here. If anyone collects old glass, that is Wexford. I forgot which glass company made it, but I needed 4 dishes that were the same, and I wasn't going to use my everyday china because I just replenished all the broken dishes that I had from various sources, eBay and replacements. But in any event, I found this stuff on sale for less than $1.50 a bowl, so I bought all 4 of them. So my apologies to Wexford collectors out there, but this was made, it's relatively new glass in the overall scheme of things. Crepe myrtle is looking fabulously well. The flowers have lost enough petals so that all the branches are upright. I was hoping to show you a couple of things, but they're gone. This angel's trumpet is now blooming above the roof. It looks really spectacular when you sit here at night and look up into that. I do need to water. We haven't had rain in the last couple of days. I cut back this loropetalum, and as you can see, it's starting to sprout back. It's got some new flowers coming. My desert rose is looking the worse for wear, but it's only because it's covered with all the old petals of the crepe myrtle. My gaillardia is blooming. Oh, I meant to tell you, I think it was last week or the week before, I said I was going to mention something in the backyard, and y'all forgot to remind me to mention it. But sedum. I put sedum here and in a couple of holes in this strawberry pot. The birds put it in that pot. It broke off and is growing in a tray with no dirt, just occasional water. This pot as well. Ooh, almost dropped the phone there. Got to be careful. And if I can get here without falling off the deck, it fell off the sides of the deck and is now growing in my leaf litter. So if you ever get this stuff going, sedum, it is extremely easy to propagate. So it's really a waste of money to buy more than one plant, in my opinion. This bromelia looks a little yellower than the one inside, but it is still doing fine. This Nepenthes, of course, still loves its life here. Still getting new pitchers. I think I need to fertilize these caladiums because they're looking a little spindly. Cardboard palm is still doing well. These bananas, I trimmed up the yellow leaves and they are way overhead now. Gives some perfect privacy over here. Of course, the mandevillas are still blooming. This Loropetalum is putting out flowers. It does leaf out in the spring purple, but in the heat of the summer it turns green. My vinca I had to trim back a little bit because you may recall earlier in the year I planted that little hedge of gardenias, and in any event they were covered over by vincas in this spot. They were acting like quite the thug, and they were actually able to smother out and try to smother the vincas. Cycads have leafed out nicely. That crepe myrtle is blooming. Annoyingly not the right color, but it is blooming. I bought a lavender colored crepe myrtle, but got the same pink as in the front yard. My lily is doing really well here. These don't like to be moved. Once when you find a place for a crinum lily, it's best to leave them be. It may take 5 to 8 years before they actually send up their first flower stalk. If you read up on them, there used to be hundreds of types of crinums. The Victorians were very big on crinum lilies, but they all disappeared through the ages. I guess people want instant gratification now, and you're not going to get it from a crinum lily. I spent a lot of time in the backyard trimming up crepe myrtles, trimming up boxwoods, and we took a lot of the bottom limbs and dead flower spathes off of the Hindo palm. It looks a lot more open, and the plant looks healthier. It still has some fruiting structures up there, but it's a lot more open in here now. Of course, my fountain is on. Needs a refresh of water. I also trimmed back the coleus because it was getting a little tall. I don't know what knocked those two leaves off. I guess it must have been the shock of being trimmed back. And I also cleaned up the bromeliad in that lion's head planter. I got that bromeliad. It was end of season on sale at Lowe's many, many years ago. And even though it has bloomed, it has come back. I guess the original bromeliad died, but I never did anything to it. I just left it in the pot and it kept sending out pups and sending out pups. Colocasia is doing well. I trimmed it back some. Here, this angel's trumpet seems like it's kind of stunted a little for now, but it will grow up a little bit taller yet. Ooh, I can see I have to get a fern out of the palm tree. Somehow I guess it's not really seeded, it spored itself up there. Needless to say, there's no dirt up in there. It just finds enough moisture. David's looking fine here. All of this area is looking good. I did not trim up the loquats. They need a little trimming, but there was only so much we could do this week. And this was another major thing, was I cleaned up a lot of the lower branches on my Serenoan repons because I didn't like the fact that it was swallowing up my backyard. I think I told you all the story that this was basically pounded flat into the ground because there used to be a big oak tree over here. I want to say, probably about 15 years ago now. But this, you could run a lawnmower over the top of that Serenoan repons. That's how flat it was. And I had given it up for dead and was planning on just planting a lawn there. And then it started sprouting back. So there it is, 25, 15, whatever years later. It's probably closer to 20 years. And it's also not supposed to grow stalks or send up stalks, but it is. Oh, I see another piece of my palm fell last night. Squirrels do like to go up in this and rattle things around, so every now and then bits and pieces fall to the ground. Not the end of the world, just pick them up. These angel trumpets are way overhead. I have an angel trumpet forest over here. I also have holes. I have some kind of an animal digging holes. And with 4 cats permanently back here, that ought not to be. I cut back my blueberries, just sort of trimmed back the pieces that were sticking way up. And I will trim up some of this fatsia to let it allow room for the blueberry up front. I don't mind if the fatsia grows back. There's nothing back there. I just don't want it to swallow up the blueberries. But of course it's pushing towards the sun, which means it's coming forwards. The pecan is doing well. It is listing a little towards this way, which is a bad thing because there's electrical wires overhead. So this winter, after the angel's trumpets die back, I'll have to put a heavy-duty stake back there and lash it to a stake to get it to grow up tall and straight. Here's an example of, again, the sedum. Earlier this year, if you go back to, I think, February or March, this was just like 2 little sprigs of sedum that was planted in there. And this stuff is coming up all over. I just weeded this yesterday, and I guess this one piece eluded me to come back later and get at it. Another thing I wanted to show you, but alas, it is too late. I did have a flower on my plumeria. There was a blossom, but it was way back there that I didn't see. It was actually on that little stem. But it was very fragrant. It was nice to sit here and smell that. But unfortunately, it is no longer there. I am definitely getting my money's worth out of this, the cassia. It was probably going to stay in bloom till the frosts come. You can see the bumblebees really like it. He was ready for his close-up, or she was ready for her close-up. I think they're related to the pea family, if I'm not mistaken. These may be the solitary bees. I see there's another one over there. We have solitary bees in the South that are native. Honeybees are not. Honeybees were introduced from Europe. But technically, they're not an invasive species. Imagine that. Because Obama signed an act of Congress specifying what an invasive species was. And bees are not invasive because they are a positive impact on the environment. If they had a negative impact on the environment, they would be considered invasive. So they are exempted from the invasive species, but something that's not native to the area certainly sounds like invasive to me, leaving politics out of it. Oh, a butterfly is back here. Probably a moth. Strawberries are still having blossoms. We did finally work over the courtyard area. That's where most of the work this week has occurred. And it is looking relieved. It has been reclaimed from the jungle. This side I did last week. It did have a dead hydrangea, well, a withering hydrangea, a Nico Blue, and I had Kevin, my yard man, dig it out, and it's probably been there about 15 years, 20 years, well, let's say 15 plus, and it had a root that was humongous, and it went down to China. And being the inquisitive mind that I am, I also like to watch Jeopardy. I'm always fact-checking them. But one of the good things about Google AI is you can ask it questions. And I got to thinking, well, does it really go down to China if it goes straight down? So I asked Google, if I dug straight down from this spot, where would I come out on the other end of the world? And it turns out I would come out near Australia in the Indian Ocean. I guess the ocean would fill in the hole. But be that as it may, you can use AI for interesting stuff, but I wouldn't trust it without doing a little search or background check, asking it different questions. Be careful of using it. Don't treat everything it tells you as gospel. I ask for sources quite a lot, but be that as it may. The Nico Blue, I bought a new one, and this one was in the shade house of the garden center that I bought it from. And needless to say, because the days are getting into the high 90s, it wilts every afternoon. And it got burned a little bit, fried, but the new growth is still good, and it will do well there because that's where one was. So I know it will grow. So I've replaced the Nico Blue, so it's doing well now, to match with the Nico Blue on this side. The little herb bed is doing well. Pretty much everything in that bed but for the sedum, which is now crowded out by herbs and other things, is edible. The daylilies, which are spreading nicely now, those are the tawny daylilies that I got from up north, the wild ones, ditch lilies some people call them. But every part of that lily is edible. Little fact, use it as you will. Cleaned this out and trimmed up all of the boxwoods. Again, I clustered a bunch of the ginger lilies there. It really opened up the encore azaleas. I'm hoping they'll take over more. And cut this hydrangea back a bit to match with the one on the other side. Had no hydrangea blooms this year. Don't know why, but it is what it is. I know they grow on old wood. Nothing happening right now with the bougainvillea, but it is green. And I left this clump of ginger lilies just so that I can enjoy some blossoms this year. It's not going to stay there. It's just there now, but I didn't have the heart to give up all ginger lilies in this area. So I'm leaving that cluster there right now. I have ginger lilies in front of the pear on that side, but they're the cardamom gingers, which are these down here. I guess it's not that essential I have to have it symmetrical. I'm just used to it. And I did notice while I was cleaning stuff up that I have stuff all over the base of my needle palm. And that stuff turns out to be fruit. So it apparently had flowers, which I didn't see, and they got fertilized somehow, and these are the fruits. So I will have bunches of needle palms. That's the first time that one has ever fruited. But yes, this backyard is starting to look good. The jungle has pretty much all been reclaimed. I still have to trim up these camellias yet a little on the sides. But I may not do that this year because flower buds, they don't look that unkempt. I may just trim the tops flat so that way they won't grow up tall, which doesn't take a lot of effort to do that. And I'll let them be a little floppy and bigger until they bloom. This camellia has got a lot of blooms in it, and it has an apple. That's a fruit from one of last year's blooms. Oh, while we're here, I was pleasantly surprised the camellia that I cut out. Ooh, it's getting hot. Let me step over here. The camellia that I cut out from this spot, there you can see the stub, does not appear to be sending out any sprouts, but there's one here. So the good news is, since the camellias are not grafted, I have another camellia coming. So when it gets a little bigger, I will let that grow. I'll have to put a stake next to it so I don't step on it. But I have a replacement in the works. We also trim back these chamaecyparuses. Chamaecypari, I don't know. But got them off the sidewalk. Ooh, there's a nice cool breeze now that I'm in the shade. Also cut back the iachroma because it was getting way too tall. So this area is starting to look like a garden again. If we get a day without rain, I hope to paint the walls on the garage, the turquoise, one more coat. I don't have to get on a ladder, so it's something I can do. I did hear from the carpenter. I had wrought iron trellises that used to be on the sides of that garage. They really aren't trellises. What they were burglar bars that I bought at a secondhand shop. Apparently people don't call them antique shops anymore. Now it's secondhand and thrift shops. But I was at an antique shop, and in any event, it always bugged me that they had the same design, but one was a half-inch lesser or shorter than the other, and it always drove me crazy. And I asked them if they could straighten it out, and apparently there's a welder in their family, so they're going to try and do it. And if they do, I will have them installed back on the wall. Those are heavier than heck, though. Let's see if I can get here and look up into that. That is huge. This is a nice view from here with the caladiums all in a row. I did a little bit of work here. I freed up the Pieris, P-I-E-R-I-S, Pieris japonica. I'm hoping this one will do as well as the one in the backyard. This was the surprise for me. I always have loved Pieris japonicas. These. And Bellingrath Gardens in Alabama had huge ones, 2 or 3 in an older area of the garden that I used to go years ago every year and see them bloom. I always loved them. Well, come to find out they were not where they needed to be, so they got rid of them. And so these are now my remembrance of those days. So since that one did so well, I thought I would try another one on this side of the fence. This side of the fence gets west sun. That side does not because of the fence, so it may make a bit of a difference. Of course, my toad lilies are encroaching to the sidewalk, which is good. I think I told you last week or the week before, the hydrangea I got for Mother's Day from Miss Mimi did not make it. But it was worth a shot planting it. Certainly wasn't out anything. My daturas are still blooming. They do have a scent. It's a pleasant scent. However, I did plant one of these daturas 3 or 4 years ago on the deck next to my back door. And although the scent is pretty of the flowers, the plant itself emits a scent that is hard to describe, but it's kind of medicinal. And it's always got the leaves, so you always have the medicinal smell. You only occasionally have the good smell. So, in my opinion, daturas are something better to be admired from a distance. Whew. I am starting to perspire heavily. The Australian tree fern is now up over my head. It is doing really well. It's loving its life here. Who would think that just about 3 years ago it was only about 2 foot tall? So it will send up a nice healthy stalk, hopefully. Here's another place that I cleaned up this last week. I trimmed up my lemongrass to open up the front gate. And also we bumped the pots. They used to be between the lemongrass and the monkey grass, and we bumped them out to the front. And this one was the one that was half dead, so I cut out all the dead on that. And this one was actually healthy until I moved it out, and it got shocked, I guess, from suddenly being in full sun, so it's going to take a little while to recover. It has a healthy side, though, on the other side, so I can always turn it around. There's always hope in gardening. You can always find the good somewhere. You learn how to disguise things. The other thing I like to learn how to tell you about disguising is these pots are pretty, but they don't match. They're similar, but this one, I had two pots. It has an embossed design, and this one does not. But you see, you can disguise things if you just let nature take over and let the moss grow. Who would know if I didn't tell you? You get to be an expert of disguise when you garden. I have an errant Mexican petunia weed coming up in my monkey grass, but I will let it come up. Blackberries are doing fine. Everything here is looking well. The cycad female is, well, both of these are females. This one just didn't have fruit this year. You can see the fruit from last year, though. They are very fertile. If you take these seeds and plant them, new plants will arise. Back in here, all is well. My fig is growing hand over fist. It must be about 10 foot tall now. I think I told you I'm just going to let it be a bush. I tried trimming it into a tree form, standard I guess you would call it, but the frost took care of that, and it is growing into a nice form as it is. This one branch here is a little deformed because it had to bend itself away from the lower pedalum, but it is what it is. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to let nature take its course, because it may not survive next year's frosts. We'll just have to wait and see. The only thing that is a little disappointing is it has a lot of new growth, but no figs. Thank God Jesus didn't see that fig tree, otherwise it would be dead. Little biblical humor there. This area is doing well. I still have to do weeding. I didn't get around to the front yard, but it'll still be there. The good thing about weeds is as long as you get them before they set seed, they become easier and easier to pull the bigger they get. Here is one of the needle palms that I was telling you about. That was a cedar. It came by from seed from the palms in the backyard. And this is actually the third spot that I put it. And I don't know if you can see it, but there is a little bitty spider there that made its web. It's not hurting anything, so I will let it be. And I put the more expensive bird food in the bird feeder, so it allows it to stay full. If you get the expensive stuff with a lot of sunflower seeds, when the squirrels come, they just eat, and then go. If you get the cheaper stuff with fewer seeds, sunflower seeds, the squirrels come and empty all the other non-sunflower seeds onto the ground and eat the sunflowers. So if you want the birds to have something to eat, you have to kind of have more sunflower seeds there. I kind of alternate and go cheap stuff, expensive stuff. I see buds are setting on all of my loquats for the fall. My ponytail palm has got a new batch of leaves. This was the old batch that had burned a little when I brought it outside. It looks a little too floppy to come into the living room this winter. I think I'll wind up putting it out in the garçonniere. It's a very sunny room. Actually, I always wanted a greenhouse, and I waited long enough to realize that it is silly to have a greenhouse in Mobile, Alabama. Almost as silly as putting a greenhouse if you live in a high desert area, but won't say any more about that. Just imagine a glass room in an area where the sun is out all day and it gets up to past 100. So the French doors that I have in the garçonniere are enough in the wintertime especially to keep plants alive and quite happy out there. I may actually make more of a feature of it this year. I'm hoping to get the inside plastered once when the outside is done. I don't like to start a lot of projects at once. I like to start and finish something before I go on to the next one. And for those of you that may keep track, I had planted 3 cuttings. Actually, they were parts of this cactus that broke away, and I only have 1 left. Someone knocked on my door last week and said they admired my cactus and was wondering if they could have a couple of pads. And I really didn't need the leaves that were in the ground. This one I kind of want to keep to fill this area up. So I actually dug up the things that I had already planted about a month ago. But you can take any one of these pads, cut it off, let it sit for 2 days, just to sort of callus over, and then bury it in the ground. Or if it's in nature, just let it fall on the ground and it will root itself. I did bring this up north when I used to have my garden in New York, and that was zone 5A. In New York, and here as well, they don't tend to stay upright. When exposed to really cold weather, they flop down against the ground, and that is their protection mechanism because it's warmer next to the ground, next to the earth, and they'll grow quite happily flat on the ground. These, however, have been upright for so long that they've formed woody stems, so these won't do that. Some of the new branches do flop, and I cut them off. So, I mean, I have to work to get it to look this good, but I do encourage upward growth and try to encourage enough gap here so I can walk between. Caladiums are still looking fine here. I did solve the riddle as to why these caladiums are different, although I don't know how it happened. I have these caladiums are in the backyard, in the back corner, and they are a different type than those. I supposedly had all of these. So how that happened, I don't know, but a bag apparently got mislabeled. Operator error. There's not that much of a difference. I'm going to live with it. However, for next year, I have a lot more of those over there. I think they're Pink Beauty in pots. And what I may do is dig these out and transplant the tubers that are currently in my pots. Because typically I don't winter the pots over. I dig the tubers up. And so what I'll do is plant them in the front. I'll just keep track of which pots are which, because those same pots are going to have paperwhites in them before long. So there you have it for the day. All is well here in Mobile. A very sweaty old man in the window. And until next week, I will wish you a good week. And let's take a close-up maybe of my okra today. Well, there's nothing of note on the okra except a pod. So I will leave you with the vision of okra. Take care.